Show me?
Yeah, tonight.
What about it?
It's dark.
I noticed.
It's also bright. It'll blind you.
I can't see.
Well, listen. Do you hear it?
Listen, I don't hear nothing.
Well, listen hard. Do you hear it?
Hear what?
The night, it's deafening.
Hold your ears.
Listen hard.
Sure haven't met many girls like you.
No, you haven't met any girls like me. Look up.
Stars.
See that one?
First one I laid my eyes on.
And the light that's leaving that star right now will take 1 billion years to get down here. You wanna know why you've never met a girl like me before?
Why?
Because I'll still be here when the light from that star gets down here to Earth. It's in 1 billion years.
It sounds like fun.
It is.
I'd like to be there too.
Maybe. Who knows?
Sure haven't met any girls like you.
No, I'm sure.
A modern day remake of Matthew Vaughn's Lay a Kick. A Coen brothers end up with Timothy Chalamet. A Citizen Kane prequel, a Midnight Cowboy sequel. Alvin and the Chipmunks deserve another squeak. There's so many new ways to revisit sideways, but a graphic novel is how we choose to update. But we still hold fast, you can't change the past on the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters, Boomers, and Sooners. This is Ruined Childhoods, and this week we are in the state that introduced the world to the twist tie, Girl Scout cookies, and aerosol cans. In this state, it is illegal to make faces at a dog, spit on a sidewalk, or take a bite out of someone else's burger, aka the 11th commandment. If you're in this state, you may hear someone say they're fixin' to do something, hide in a Frady hole, or that someone has gone postal, a term coined in this state that became ubiquitous in the 90s with anyone experiencing workplace-related rage. That's right, we're in Oklahoma, and we're talking about the 1987 vampire western Near Dark. Dan, if you were to become a vampire and be stuck at one age, what age would that be?
Ooh, wow. What a fabulous question, John.
Yeah, I didn't want to prepare you for this one. I wanted to get the real off the cuff answer.
Well, I'm considering that becoming a vampire because my first inclination is to go to, when do I feel like I was in peak physical condition? So I would go maybe 24, 25, but then I think, well, becoming a vampire kind of gives you that, you get the strength and you kind of you gain that from becoming a vampire.
You get the strength, but as we'll talk about when we get more into Near Dark, some characters become vampires when they're too young for it to make them feel good about themselves.
Oh, right. No, I certainly would not go any younger than 24. But then I think maybe I would maybe closer to now, maybe 40, maybe kind of having come that far. And then it seems like a good midlife crisis thing. So I feel like I'm actually at the right age because because think about it. What do you I'm 46. So around midlife, let's hope, knock on wood, but I imagine that, so it would give me that rejuvenation of being a vampire. Mm-hmm. It would somewhat resolve some of those thoughts of mortality and that, being aware of your mortality and thinking if I'm lucky, I'm just now coming over the metaphorical hill. So,
right.
So really becoming vampirized or because in the vein of Near Dark, where the word vampire is not used once,
Yeah.
if I were to be
Sure.
bit and turned, I think maybe this would be a good age for it.
Cool.
So I'm gonna go.
I like
with-
that answer.
I'm gonna go, with like present day Dan.
Cool.
I feel like
I
I
like
appreciate it more.
I have a similar question, but it's kind of on the other end of things, and
I would like to know your answer to that question.
I'll tell you that in a minute. But first, I do want to know, and I don't think that I mean this in the context specifically of Near Dark, because the rules are different for Near Dark. But
yes,
with the traditional vampire rules, which one would you dislike the most?
if I was a vampire, which of the vampire
If I was a
rules-
vampire.
I'd bite into every neck. Which rule would I
Which
like
rule will be the biggest bummer for you?
probably the sunlight thing.
The sunlight thing?
I would have to go. I'm not, and again, I'm giving you my off the cuff response. I'm not thinking analytically about this. I'm just like automatically, what would be the biggest bummer? The sunlight thing, because I know we're not necessarily playing by Near Dark rules, but we're also definitely not playing by Twilight rules. So sunlight, in my definition of being a vampire, sunlight doesn't just mean you sparkle and twinkle while you're playing baseball.
Right.
Out in a clearing in the woods.
Yeah.
That happens in Twilight for those who
yes, it
have
does. I feel like for me, the rule that would be the biggest bummer would be the garlic thing. Because I
had
like
a feeling
garlic
you
a
were
lot.
gonna, yeah.
Oh yeah. Because I feel like going outside, I'd be perfectly happy keeping my outside activities to the nighttime. I mean, I certainly like to, go out and do stuff or whatever, but I'm okay. We live in the Pacific Northwest. We don't see the sun most of the time anyway.
This is true.
Yeah. So I feel like that's one that like I could get used to. I certainly love movie theaters. They're plenty dark. I like that. I don't come in contact with a lot of crucifixes in my day-to-day life.
No.
When it comes to having to be invited in somewhere, I'm a bit of an introvert, so that's fine by me.
Nobody invites you anywhere.
Yeah. So anyway, I feel like the garlic thing would be the biggest bummer because it does make food taste better. Unless we're talking candy or something, but
No, garlic. Yeah, absolutely. Garlic is a wonderful, not an herb. What does it qualify as?
is it technically a root vegetable?
Is it a root vegetable?
I think it's
or
like
is
in
it
the onion
classified
family.
as a. I'm all right. A bulb. A bulb.
Yeah.
Bulbous. That doesn't sound right.
No.
No. I think this. So I agree with you. Like, but first of all, in the Pacific Northwest, at least in Seattle, there's like 6 months of darkness, but then there are those 3 months when the sun is just out.
And sometimes it can be too much.
It can be too much, yes.
Yeah.
And it just be having to brave, and I know like it's perfectly possible to block out all the sun from your house, and you could do that. You could make all of the preparations and certainly adapt your house to block out the sunlight. But what about those times when you have to go out? I just think, yeah, that would be the most, because I thought about the garlic thing.
Well, that's why in a lot of vampire lore, there's a familiar, a non-vampire who kind of does your daytime business and finds you your food and whatnot. Did you ever watch What We Do in the Shadows, whether it's the TV show or the movie?
I believe it. I'm ashamed to say I have not.
You would really like it. I feel
sure.
like that's one that would be an easy one for you to get really into.
And if I can come back to the garlic, so I've done my research, and garlic is indeed, according to the world's greatest source on everything, Wikipedia, a species of bulbous flowering plant.
Hey, all right.
So it turns out I was not far off on bulbous, which definitely did not feel appropriate. But
No, you nailed it.
sure enough, and its close relatives include the onion.
Look, we're all coming to this with some sort of knowledge or good
Yeah,
guessing.
indeed, good for us. So yes, those are the vampire rules, right? But as you said, Near Dark does not necessarily adhere to we don't find out where Near Dark stands on garlic. We don't get a definitive.
Doesn't really factor in.
Does not a lot of garlic in Oklahoma cuisine.
Sometimes when I'm doing the intros, I will look up, what the like traditional foods of a state are, and I probably saw some stuff, but I don't think that it was very garlic heavy cuisine.
No, probably not. I would.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure people in Oklahoma cook with garlic, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's a staple. That might be another reason why Oklahoma makes for a good setting for this movie.
Yeah.
And
Dan,
maybe that's a consideration.
To come back to my initial question to you, which you tossed my way, and I said, we'll get to that. I think that for me, it would be kind of like 22, 23, somewhere around there, because I feel like and yes, with becoming a vampire, it does mean, increased strength and things like that. So it's less about, what you're able to do. But I feel like I don't know, I was able to just kind of be a little bit more free in my body at the time. And also it's like before the age where like hair starts to appear in places where it's a nuisance.
Yeah. Or fall out of places where it was helpful.
There you go. Hair is where it should be at that age.
But
and then
again, yeah. But so yeah, you would definitely go with that, like, yeah, that prime, that kind of
I feel like that was
20s.
More towards mid, I'd say. That was a good era, I'd say. But I feel like also when thinking about Near Dark, because the character May is theoretically kind of in that zone, it's also just like a very alluring time. When you're in your body, and there's I feel like there's a lot more opportunity there that you don't get when you're like much older. I feel like it'd be easier to, entice prey when you're in like a younger body, but not too young.
See, again, here's where I stand coming from and look, there's not a right answer here, but any person's answer is their right answer. But I considered that. I thought about that, and I thought, well, at this age, Again, I've been married for 12 years and, intend to continue. And so I can't necessarily speak from experience, but I feel like now if I were to go on that, like, if I had to go out and be like, seductive or at least like, lure in some prey. First of all, I feel like this age group I feel like prime. I feel like I could get some prey if I'm going in my age bracket, and because it's people who are just like, hey, I don't give as much of a shit now, and yeah, that's cool. I need something a little exciting, and that's also like just coming from my age, and of course you'd get experience because you wouldn't age and you would just live forever at that age. But I feel like I'm just at a place now in my life where especially if I was a vampire and I knew that, like, if not this one, the next one. Also, if I knew that like my life was depending, or I guess my non-life,
Sure, your
was
existence,
right?
Yeah.
My existence, thank you, was depending on the prey. I think I would know my way around better.
Okay, all right,
But
yeah.
definitely like consider that, because like, yeah, you do need to be, you need to bring them in somehow. And
Yeah.
yeah. So
I would say that it seems like it'd be easier for somebody like May to corral some fresh meat than somebody like Homer, who is like 12.
well, yes, no, I don't know who in their right mind would want to say, where I want to be frozen in time at age 12, friggin'
Well,
like middle
yeah.
school.
And this also, I mean, I feel like, and say what you will about the movie, but an interview with a vampire, Kirsten Dunst's character really nails that struggle.
Yes.
And her performance in that is absolutely extraordinary. And, credit where credit is due to Anne Rice for, creating the character and kind of introducing that dilemma,
right,
of the kid who's turned to a vampire at just such a young age and just doesn't get the opportunity to experience life as an adult.
Right.
Yeah. So I feel like we certainly have enough movies to pluck from to kind of see examples of the different ways that you can be a vampire, or the different kind of rules. When watching movies in preparation for this episode, I also watched one from a couple years prior to this, like one of the earlier movies kind of in this new wave of vampire movies, and that was Once Bitten. And that one has its own thing where this like vampire countess needs to turn a virgin into a vampire with 3 different sessions of like bloodletting, essentially, before Halloween, or else she vanishes. Like, that's it. Or no. She like ages to her appropriate age or something, whatever.
Oh, got it. She loses.
But it's like that's its
power.
its own thing that isn't like a normal vampire thing.
No, yeah, that's kind of that's taking the vampire thing in a different direction, mixing it up with some other different fantasy elements.
Yeah. Dan, what is your favorite vampire movie?
Oh, my favorite vampire movie. Another great question. So if I thought about it longer, I might come up with a different answer. But again, off the top of my head, I have to go with Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Really?
And again, maybe there's a vampire movie. I'm just glancing over to my little like Blu-ray shelf. Like, do I have any vampire movies over here? I'm thinking about like what vampire movies I own, and it's Bram Stoker's Dracula. The Lost Boys. So, all right, all right. I would have to say, okay, so favorite vampire movies. I mean, Near Dark is up there for me.
It's a cool movie.
Near Dark is up there for me. The Lost Boys is up there for me.
Yeah.
Lost Boys is a great movie. 1987, great year for teenage vampire movies.
Totally. Bram Stoker's Dracula, it's not a beloved vampire movie or a beloved movie to begin with. A lot of people criticize, Keanu Reeves' performance, and I think that Gary Oldman is fantastic.
The movie has
it's visually striking, and whenever it's mentioned, it seems like it's always like, not a great movie. Looks great, but like not a great movie.
But also, part of it for me is the nostalgia factor, because when that movie came out, it was huge, and our hometown movie theater, the Cranford movie theater, was still a twin, and it had Dracula playing on both screens, so the marquee just said Dracula on each side, and I remember going like opening weekend, and just like everybody was there. Like, it was an event.
Well, I really appreciated that Gary Oldman's Dracula had a it spans through different eras, but very distinct looks that you didn't really see when you think about Dracula. You typically see, the Eddie Munster looking
Right, well, the Bela Lugosi.
The Bela Lugosi.
Right.
Or you see like Nosferatu, the Max
Right.
Schreck, look, which is more ghoulish. And in Bram Stoker's Dracula, you really see somebody who is just this person existing throughout time and adapting in certain ways.
Right.
Certainly putting his own spin on things. There's the butt looking
The
haircut
hair
situation. Then there's the one where he's got the little tiny sunglasses, and yeah, it's kind of cool. And I mean, Roman Coppola's practical effects that he did on that movie are so cool. And so that's a good one to kind of like, if you're having a party on Halloween, throw it on in the background with the sound off, and nobody will be disappointed in that.
Right.
But I would have to agree though that Lost Boys, I think, is just like the most fun vampire movie. Certainly, I mean, we've talked about it before.
Yeah.
It's fun to talk about Near Dark, especially in conversation with the Lost Boys. They came out right at the same time, and it's really the way that you see how different directors handle similar subject matter. Joel Schumacher, who is coming at it from a perspective of, somebody who's, an openly gay man, and the way that kind of slips into kind of the vampire lifestyle, and all of the allegory that he's putting in there, plus having all of these like hot young actors at his disposal to kind of to play around with. Whereas in Near Dark, it being a vampire movie was not necessarily an afterthought, but it was like the concession in order to be able to actually get a movie made.
Right.
It was like, all right, well, we'll make our Western, but we're going to have to figure out a way to make it sellable. So.
Right. Yeah.
It's a vampire
And
movie.
as we'll talk about, there's still a lot of Western DNA in this movie.
100%.
Right. Yeah. But so, I mean, I'm thinking about all the other vampire movies, and there are none that I can think of. I mean, I haven't seen the Bela Lugosi Dracula in quite some time. I remember the Frank Langella Dracula being fun.
Yeah.
I remember that being a good time. But I would say it's Bram Stoker's Dracula, Lost Boys, and Near Dark probably round out the top three for me. Yeah. I don't know if anybody has other great vampire movies that we should be considering or that we should check out. Email us at ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com.
That's right. And clearly what we do in the shadows needs to be in that conversation.
I need,
the film and the series, both excellent. And Dan also, mentioning this as, Katheryn Bigelow's real like first feature, as a solo director. Do you have a favorite Katheryn Bigelow movie? I know I'm putting you on the spot a lot.
No, it's fine because I can answer. No, I can answer that question because all I have to do is think about the only reason why it's taking me any time is because I am a big fan of like all of her movies.
You're a Bigelow fan?
The only one that I haven't seen is Blue Steel.
Really?
I'm pretty sure that's the only one of Katheryn Bigelow. I'm not
you should watch Blue Steel.
I will. I want to. So I would have to say my favorite Katheryn Bigelow movie. Ooh, it's hard to not say Point Break.
Yeah.
But I am going to go with Strange Days.
Strange Days is great.
I love Strange Days. I remember seeing that in the theater and really being wowed by it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a movie I can still go back to. So
unfortunately, it's a little hard to go back to because it's not easy to find unless you have a copy of it.
It's easy to find when you don't get rid of your DVDs.
There you go. Yeah.
Yes. So Yeah, I do own it on DVD and watch it. I mean, maybe not once a year, but
Oh.
it's not too like I would say once every 5 years. That's probably the rate of watching Strange Days.
The first time I saw Strange Days was in a high school class about film analysis. And I know, well, my old teacher,
Wow.
Mrs. Everhart, had this class and it was fantastic. And she showed that movie and I was like, oh, what do we have here? Interesting, because I'm sure I had seen Point Break, but that was probably the only Katheryn Bigelow movie I had seen at that point. And Strange Days is very different.
Yeah.
and it's wild, and it's really fun. The past week I've been watching a bunch of Katheryn Bigelow movies in addition to vampire movies, and to see not only her evolution but the elements that she kind of takes from movie to movie that kind of puts her fingerprints on it a bit. I even watched Zero Dark 30 and The Hurt Locker, which are both excellent.
Zero Dark,
famously.
Yep. I mean, yeah, I've seen them, but Zero Dark 30 saw in the theater.
I did too. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent movie.
Yeah.
She did make film. I think she's made one since that. And
yeah, she hasn't been too active recently. I don't know if she's producing anything. But Dan, I do got to say, Blue Steel, especially if you think about it in the context of between Near Dark and Point Break, because what year was Blue Steel? 89.
80, yeah, or 90.
Yes.
Yeah, somewhere
Is
around
89,
that,
is it? I just looked at it. To see it as, and it's just you can see how she's getting to be able to do the stuff that she does in Point Break. And Blue Steel, Jamie Lee Curtis is a rookie cop, and there's a serial killer who's has this connection with her and everything. And it's a gritty cop movie, but it's also a twisted thriller. And to see the ways that Katheryn Bigelow incorporates her style onto this movie that could easily be overlooked is pretty amazing. One of the things that I love about Katheryn Bigelow's style, and I know that a lot of directors do this and it's a lot of the cinematographers put this in, but the way that she has, light pouring through small dark openings.
Yeah.
And it's clearly in Near Dark we have that. Blue Steel, we get it when she's doing target practice and with her revolver. And, you even see it in I noticed it in Zero Dark 30 when they're in kind of the torture barn or whatever. And you just see the light pouring through. And it's
yes,
man, Katheryn Bigelow's been doing this pretty steadily throughout her career. And it's beautiful every time it happens.
I feel just Sunlight, I guess Near Dark gets to really emphasize that, but there were some shots in Near Dark that made me think about the shot in Point Break where it's the sun setting in the ocean or whatever. And so yeah, she's definitely got it's one of the things that makes her such a great filmmaker is she has these things that she brings to every film, but her films are very distinct from one another. It's similar to the Coen brothers.
Yeah.
Where they definitely are their films. It's definitely a Katheryn Bigelow film.
Totally.
But she doesn't really repeaters. I know Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30, maybe some slight thematic crossover, but
absolutely.
Yeah, still distinct films. Still distinct films.
And also, when you talk about Near Dark and Point Break, you have a very similar theme about this person who is conflicted about kind of their allegiance to one part of their life versus another part of their life. And to see that struggle come out in both of those movies, Keanu Reeves clearly a better actor. I'd see as pretty objective to say than Adrian Pasdar, but
yes,
they're both able to, convey that in a pretty convincing way. Should we do a synopsis?
Oh, I think it's about time we did a synopsis.
Okay. Late one night, a young Oklahoma cowboy named Caleb encounters May, a mysterious and beautiful woman. Their encounter is fun and flirty until May decides to welcome Caleb into her world of eternal life, the life of a vampire. Caleb feels the effects that the sun has on his body quickly, but May and her nocturnal friends rescue him in the Winnebago from hell and welcome him to their pack. Inside the RV, Caleb meets the crew. Jesse is the Civil War era patriarch of the group. His partner is the unpredictable Diamondback. They are also joined by Homer, the 40-year-old 11-year-old who turned May. And finally, we have Severin, the relentless killing machine who thrives as a vampire. The reactions to Caleb are mixed. Jesse and Diamondback don't seem to mind an additional member to the pack as long as he doesn't slow them down. Severin is skeptical of Caleb, who is taking a long time to adjust to their way of life. And Homer is bitter, seeing as how he feels ownership over May, having been the one to turn her in the first place. It's for this reason that Homer tries to recruit a new member of the gang, Sarah, who happens to be Caleb's sister, who is searching for Caleb with their dad. Their chance encounter at a motel presents Caleb with a choice. Does he go back with his family to his old life, or does he choose the eternal life with May and succumb to the lifestyle of a murderous vampire until the end of time? And Dan, I should state, I watched the movie twice, the second time with Katheryn Bigelow's commentary. Cool. And there are certain aspects that after I wrote the synopsis where I was like, did they say that in the movie? Or was that just something that Katheryn Bigelow said is kind of like, the backstory that we don't know? Kind of like, I couldn't remember if Homer turning May was really something that came up and like his feelings towards Caleb. Was that like a thing? I couldn't even remember.
It comes up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When you said it, I wasn't like, wait, when did that? Oh,
yeah. Okay, cool.
No, I remember. It's more definitely more towards, you see it because you see whenever like the two of them are in the van and they're like spooning, and Homer looks over and has that like bitter, dejected look. Right.
Homer, played by Joshua John Miller, whose half brother is Jason Patrick of the Lost Boys.
Yes.
Kind of amazing that there's that connection with Lost Boys as well.
And their father, a part of another iconic horror film, Jason Miller of The Exorcist.
Yeah. Right. Yes. Father Karras.
Father Karras.
Yeah. Who, it's hard for me to think about Father Karras now without thinking about John Travolta's brother in Saturday Night Fever, who looks exactly like Father Karras.
Yes,
when he's in his little church getup. Adrian Pasdar plays Caleb. Jenny Wright is May. Lance Henriksen is Jesse. Bill Paxton is Severin. Jenette Goldstein is Diamondback. And Joshua John Miller, as we said, is Homer. We've got a lot of really amazing, other actors in this. Troy Evans, who you've seen in everything, plays a police officer. James LeGros. James LeGros, yeah, who's, if you saw him, you'd be like, oh, yeah, that guy.
Right.
One of those guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, really, really strong cast, and clearly Bill Paxton kind of like steals the show.
Tim Thomerson as Caleb's father.
Right. Yeah. Who's just such like a typical, like he plays Oklahoma dad so well.
Right.
Yeah. And Marcia Leeds as Sarah, the younger sister, who's fantastic. She's great in this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Although she never learned stranger danger.
No, definitely not. No, when she walks into that hotel room, it's like, oh, why are you taking another step in?
Yeah, no kidding. Bunch of freaks.
Seriously.
Yeah. But yeah, I clearly this movie just has such a knockout cast. They each have such distinct characteristics that show that you can tell that they like really had a lot of time to like prepare for these roles and to gel as a unit. And I really appreciate those efforts. There's also like the look of this movie. It's stunning. There's great practical effects, and
Yeah.
because the only real like vampire tropey danger thing is the sun, it really lets you focus on that being the thing that could take them down.
And it is so effective.
Yeah.
There are so many. There's a shot of it's when they're under siege in the motel, and Caleb is running for the van, and he's got the cloak over him, but he's running through the sun, and you see like the smoke building and building, and then you just see like the cloak burst into flames.
Yeah.
It was such and I love the reaction shot of the cop who's just like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah, it's simple, but it's effective.
Oh, so effective. So incredibly effective.
And also for a movie that is a Western, it kind of tracks. And I don't know, like I could see a Western, you know, they're so smoky and dusty, and everything about it is so elemental in a Western that, you know, to see somebody on fire, I feel like is something that you could see in a Western as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So much of this, especially if you've seen movies like The Wild Bunch.
Yeah.
And Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, because the more violent Westerns, which especially The Wild Bunch, the scenes like where they're under siege in the motel, it's straight out of a Western.
You know, Dan, if Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid were vampires, we would have never gotten that Paul Newman, Katheryn Ross bicycle scene.
Oh, no, certainly not. You can't have that.
It'd have to be at night.
No, it would.
Yeah.
It would. Unless they were Twilight vampires, and then they would just twinkle.
Just twinkle a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. That's like the
that's kind of
ever.
That's like the moment in Twilight when she's like holding on to him and he's like climbing through the trees all fast like a little monkey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Tarzan.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I thought that was cool. Let's talk a little bit about why it makes sense. And I know that the movie crosses state lines, but we're going to be talking about it.
We come back to Oklahoma, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's talk about why Oklahoma, because I can't think of a lot of vampire movies that are set in the Midwest. I think of The Lost Boys is California. Bram Stoker's Dracula is London, and it's London, and I mean Transylvania. Like Buffy the Vampire Slayer is Beverly Hills.
Sure. Oh yeah, we didn't talk about Buffy. Buffy's a great one.
Yeah, I enjoy Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The movie and the TV show.
Where Renfield took place.
Where Renfield? Oh, I didn't see. Probably New York.
It's New Orleans. But
New Orleans?
I think it's in New Orleans, which Interview with a Vampire.
Yes, that's right. Interview with the Vampires, New Orleans.
Yeah.
Which are all very... Vampire in Brooklyn. There is Brooklyn.
Right?
Yeah, clearly.
Vampire's Kiss, which also is an outlier.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever seen Vampire's Kiss?
I've never seen Vampire's Kiss.
Oh my God, Dan. I watched it the other night. Holy smokes.
I went to go watch it and it wasn't streaming.
It's on one of the ad-supported streaming services. Oh yeah. No, maybe no. It's on Hoopla.
It was not on Hoopla.
Well, it is on Hoopla now.
No, I was frustrated because honestly, I watched Near Dark on the Roku channel, and one thing I miss about like those, like the movies, the theatrical movies when they would come to television, is that they were like specifically edited for commercial breaks.
Yeah.
So the commercial breaks would come at a point where they kind of made sense, and on these
I
streamers,
at least appreciate the ones that give you like the kind of countdown to when an ad is coming, so that doesn't feel as abrupt.
Yeah. But still, it was just something I was thinking was like, I miss how you'd watch a movie that was, whatever, edited for television. Of course, that's the trade-off, is that the movies are not edited.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll take it. But
so Dan, just real quick, Vampire's Kiss, Nicolas Cage plays this guy who is clearly having a complete mental breakdown. and hallucinates that he is bitten by a vampire. And he is convinced that he is turning into a vampire. But he's not.
He's not.
He's just losing his marbles. And yeah, it's amazing.
All right, I'm going to check that out.
Oh, Dan, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
I watched it. I was like, I can't believe, first of all, that it's taken me 41 years to see this movie. Well, I guess 30, whatever year, I don't know, however long it's been out. However many years to see this movie.
90, 91.
Yeah, something like that. But however many years to see this movie. And then also it's just like, it's not an easy movie to find, that there haven't been all of these like, you know, re-releases of it. I know that there's a Blu-ray or DVD that he does commentary for, Nicolas Cage.
88.
Oh, it's 88. So it's right after this. It's right after Near Dark. Yeah, it's in the second wave probably of vampire movies, which you know, really got kicked off mid 80s. I mean, Once Bitten wasn't the first one to do it, but
right. There's Once Bitten, there's My Best Friend is a Vampire.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, with Robert Sean Leonard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's fascinating to me that there is this type of monster, this type of creature that can appear in so many different forms of movies since the beginning of movies, essentially.
Yeah.
And it can come back and you know, of course, we have like the comedies, Dracula, Dead and Loving It, and Renfield, and things like that play with all of the old material. And you know, we're getting a new Nosferatu movie. There's Shadow of the Vampire.
Yeah. Shadow of the Vampire is
Willem Dafoe.
With Willem Dafoe is also in.
I know.
Right.
The new Nosferatu is so good. Well, I mean, it's like Willem. As long as we've got him, we may as well use him.
Shadow of the Vampire is so good just for like to watch Malkovich and Dafoe.
Well, so good. And then of course we have the Werner Herzog Klaus Kinski Nosferatu.
Oh yes,
which
I still need to see that.
Oh my God, it's amazing to me that you know, we don't get this type of thing with, well, as much with werewolves. Of course, there's American Werewolf in London.
Yeah, and then they did Paris.
In Paris, yeah. I couldn't remember which one was first for some reason. And so, but we don't have this, but it's the same thing. Oh, Monster Squad is 87 also.
Right.
But and of course they've been trying to do like the new Universal Dark Universe kind of thing, but that's been failing completely.
Fright Night in 85, remade in 2012, I think.
Sounds about right.
With Colin Farrell. Oh, you know what I forgot about before? From Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh, that's a great one.
That's a fun one.
Written by Tarantino.
Yeah. Yep.
And
he
co-stars George Clooney. Salma Hayek in that one.
Salma Hayek is in that. Of course, Danny Trejo.
Cheech Marine.
Of course. It's a Robert Rodriguez film. So yeah. Wow. So there are a lot of vampire movies, but most of them are considered like less. Like a lot more of them are like Red Snow.
It's an extremely versatile subject matter that can be applied to so many societal issues.
You ever see The Hunger?
No, what's that one?
That one's with it's with David Bowie and Catherine Deneuve and Susan Sarandon. I think Tony Scott directed it. Talk about somebody who knows how to shoot light coming into a room through like cracks. But yeah, that's another great vampire movie that plays things a little bit differently. It's also a more adult vampire movie.
Mm-hmm. I got to check that one out.
Oh, no kidding. It's going to be playing on Monday, June 10th at the SIF Cinema Egyptian in Seattle here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not going to go see it, but like,
nice to know that it's being shown still.
Yeah, so that's The Hunger. The Hunger's a great and different vampire movie.
It's so much fun.
83.
It's a really, yeah. So if that's 83, then that probably was one that really started off kind of like the new wave of vampire movies.
Like, what would have been before that? I think the Langella Dracula was 79.
Yeah, but also it's like, I feel like when you're just doing Dracula movies, it's like you're just kind of going in the same territory and you're just kind of doing the same thing a little bit.
Well,
I mean,
and
it's been
then
a while
but
since I saw the Langella one, but
there's also like there's the Dracula 2000 and Dracula
right.
and,
On Blackula, of course.
oh, Blackula.
Yeah. But I feel like non-Dracula vampire movies, although Monster Squad could be certainly considered one of those, although it's certainly got its own twist to it.
He's Dracula.
He's Dracula, but it's not a Dracula movie. It
Sorry,
is
Dr.
a monster.
Acula.
Dr. Acula. It is a monster. That's a monster movie.
Well, oh
and
yeah, yes.
And it doesn't have the same factors of the lore, and this has its own thing. Although I guess that one also has its own need to find a virgin and do all that kind of stuff. But that's to prevent
true.
the monsters from doing their thing. So interesting.
Yeah. I'm looking up like lists of vampire movies just to think like what could we have missed?
Well, we don't have to really worry about that. We can just keep on talking about Near Dark.
We don't have to worry.
It's a really fun subject matter.
Let's talk about Near Dark, because honestly, like when most people are thinking about like, all right, what's a great vampire movie that of course, I clicked a link and there's another great one worth mentioning. Let the Right One In.
Oh, I've never seen that one.
Okay, worth seeing the original.
Uh-huh.
The Matt Reeves remake is good.
I mean, I like Matt Reeves.
Yes.
His Planet of the Apes movies were exquisite.
Absolutely.
No, I wasn't a big The Batman fan, but you know what? I
thought what he did
his
with
style.
I thought what he did with it was interesting, but it did not need to be 3 hours long.
Oh, it's a Swedish film. Let the Right One In.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and I definitely recommend seeing the original Swedish one, but if you like it, the remake is worth checking out.
Gotcha.
So, but usually Near Dark is the one that comes up when people are like, "Oh, if you like vampire movies and you haven't seen this."
Well, I also wonder if the fact that Near Dark has historically been very hard to track down. Now it is on ad-supported streaming services, but because it was, I think, the final film, if not like one of the final films of like the De Laurentiis Entertainment Group productions that, you know, tanked the studio, it made it really hard to find the movie, or if you did, you know, copies of it were very expensive. And so perhaps also the lore of like watching this hard to find Katheryn Bigelow movie made it even better. If it was all over the place and you could just watch it anytime you want easily, maybe it wouldn't have done or become as much of like a cult classic.
Well, I think, and I would say that it hasn't. I don't remember how I saw it the first time. And this was the second time seeing it for me. And I don't remember the first time I saw it. And like, it could have been as far back as a V8, although I'm pretty sure I watched it on a streamer. Or like an on-demand cable network or something like that. So it was definitely, Blade there.
Oh yeah, I can't believe we haven't talked about Blade.
Yeah, we didn't talk about. I'm looking at this list. I'm like, we didn't talk about Blade. We didn't talk about what was the other one that popped up on here? Oh, maybe it was Let the Right One In.
Not important.
No. Anyway, yeah. So I'm so distracted.
Yeah, put the phone down.
I put it down. I'm done. So yeah, but
no more screen time.
I feel like Katheryn Bigelow's Oscar like when just the buzz around the Hurt Locker
Yeah.
put some light on to Near Dark.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but it's definitely a movie worth finding a way to watch.
One of the other things that comes up a lot when you're kind of reading about or hearing about Near Dark is clearly, James Cameron's influence and support in kind of getting it made, and Katheryn Bigelow's, famous, relationship with him that was kind of blossoming at this time. And it's a little unfortunate that, like, this other, especially male director, is so heavily part of the conversation. But I'm glad that Katheryn Bigelow has really carved a path that is very much her own.
Yeah.
And I mean, if James Cameron and her involvement with him meant that this movie could get made and that people like Bill Paxton and Lance Henriksen and Jenette Goldstein would be in it, then it's like good.
Absolutely. And the two of them maintained a part. He co-wrote Strange Days.
Totally. Yeah.
So like they maintained a partnership, but yeah. So another aspect of this movie that I think works really well, and of course we should talk about some of the other performances, but I want to talk about the score.
Tangerine Dream, yes.
Tangerine Dream, baby. Yeah.
I love a good
stuff.
Tangerine Dream score.
Yeah. Oh, and it was perfect. It was the right atmosphere. The Tangerine Dream score works so well with the light coming through and just kind of like that that aesthetic and just like but also coming back to Oklahoma, those shots of them just like driving on those just long roads, totally flat, nothing in sight. The Tangerine Dream score really worked for that.
Yeah,
and just also
Dan,
really
I think this is our third movie that we're covering that's a Tangerine Dream score.
Well,
because we had Risky Business and Legend.
Oh yes. Risky Business. Yeah, I believe this is our third Tangerine Dream score.
And I don't know if we really talked too much about the score when we did Risky Business, but I feel like the Tangerine Dream score kind of transformed that movie from what could have been a throwaway
comedy,
comedy kind of thriller, but like it took it to another level.
Yes,
it really did.
Yes,
so good.
Yes, agreed. 100%.
Yeah,
100%. So yeah, Tangerine Dream score is fantastic. And talk about the performances. Bill Paxton. I think about his performance in Aliens.
Yeah.
And then I think he goes from that to this.
Yeah.
And he's got that like early 2000s Sam Rockwell energy.
Totally. Yeah.
Where it's just like, bursting through him.
In 85, he did Weird Science.
Right.
Which we love. We love. His performance in Weird Science is like historic.
Shit. Absolutely. I forgot. Right. Yeah. He makes an appearance in The Terminator.
Yeah, little appearance in The Terminator.
Yeah.
But yeah, he really came out swinging, and he kind of also has like a Walton Goggins-y thing going on.
Oh
where
yeah.
It's like nobody can deliver a line just the same way as he can, and I do feel like it's a shame when people like conflate or confuse Bill Paxton with Bill Pullman because they are two wildly different actors.
Yeah. I think that stems from Twister and Independence Day being in theaters at the same time. I feel like that's kind of that's when I remember a lot of that happening. But anyone who's familiar with their careers, and Bill Pullman is great at what Bill Pullman does.
Pullman is great, but Bill Pullman could never be Bill Paxton's character in True Lies.
No. I mean, like True Lies, Aliens, this.
Well, although
that's-
we have Bill Pullman in Spaceballs kind of has an aliens crossover thing going on.
well, there's the alien. Yeah, but Bill Pullman's as an actor.
I know.
Yeah.
No, you know where I stand.
Oh, but Bill, I rewatched True Lies recently, and
Oh my God,
yeah,
Bill Paxton is so good in it.
Fantastic.
And of course with Jamie Lee Curtis, another Katheryn
Yep.
Bigelow actor. There you go.
Indeed. Yeah, so Bill Paxton is fantastic. Love Lance Henriksen. Love him in this role.
Just back to Bill Paxton for a second.
Sure.
The things that he brings to the character, aside from just his physicality, but famously he had some like ad libs, like taking the guy's sunglasses at the bar, and then as he's about to like bite the neck, being like, "I hate it when they ain't shaved."
Yeah.
And, it's like those little things that he adds to it that aren't in the script, but it's just like, oh, you get this guy, like you are this character.
Oh,
So good.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Just loves being a vampire, and
Loves being just like a cool vampire. I don't remember. Did it say like how long he had been a vampire at that point?
I think it's mentioned or hinted at some point.
Because I know that Homer is probably like 30 years a vampire. May is like 4 years. We know Jesse is from the Civil War, so
Right.
120 years or something.
At that point, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know about Diamondback, but
Yeah, we really don't learn much about her.
Unfortunately, Diamondback doesn't really get as much of a backstory as everybody else. Not as much meat there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think, are there any other performances? I mean, I guess...
Well, I mean, you started to mention Lance Henriksen, so well cast as kind of the elder states vampire. He's got the face for it, and they made it even crazier looking.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, he's great. I have a question for you. Jenny Wright, who's fantastic as May. I thought that she was so perfectly cast for this.
Yep.
So when we first see her,
Mm-hmm.
she's at the gas station, convenience store, bar, whatever it is, and she's got a soft serve ice cream cone.
Yeah.
Do you, knowing that these vampires can't have human food or they'll get sick, did she have that as a prop to kind of was she trying to entice a young guy into kind of coming along with her so she could eat them? Like, what do you think the move was there? Because I remember when Caleb tries to eat human food, he gets sick.
But doesn't
Right?
she eat some of it?
That's what I thought too, but it's just like, how is that happening? Also, it's like, where did she get that?
Oh. Yeah, what gas station
anyway.
has soft serve like that?
I know, right? So that part was a little confusing to me, and I've been trying to justify it as it's a a prop or something that justifies that gets these young guys all horned up or something.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I mean, also at that point, that character clearly is going through a bit of an existential crisis. And, when she starts to have the companionship with Caleb and starts to fall for him, it's, of course, a very conflicting moment for her. So maybe she just is getting the ice cream because it's I miss getting ice cream.
Right. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I was just mulling that over and thinking
Yeah.
I kind of want to go back and watch that again and watch her face and see if there's that moment where she walks out and looks at the ice cream cone and just
Not much more I can do with this than just pretend to lick it. I don't know.
or tempt a local boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It worked.
What'd you think of Adrian Pastar in this?
I mean, what did he need to be? It was kind of like, I mean, was the character, it felt like the character was supposed to be always in over his head.
Yeah.
And that that was the other thing about it being set in Oklahoma, was that he was just so bored.
He's a good old boy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's a good old boy. And I mean, like, not to mention, May is pretty reluctant to, like, she really tries to be like, no, maybe you don't want to go. But he's like, what today would be considered, assault, sexual assault.
Right.
When he's saying like, oh, you have to kiss me if you want the keys.
Yeah, I didn't love that.
No, it was something, it was very much of its time, and the element, and I wondered also, being a female director, is there some commentary in this of like, you will regret it if you pull that shit.
Yeah.
So I think about that, and but yeah, I was wondering about the whole, I'm still thinking about the food thing. I'm like, do they eat?
Sorry, I just ruined that for you, huh?
I was like, was there another point where they all like, where they order food?
They order drinks at the bar, but I don't think they actually consume any of the drinks. I think that was just to like justify themselves being at the bar. There's the moment where Caleb gets the like candy bar at the bus station, but he's also like getting sick and, being a total disgusmo.
Right. Right. Yeah. Oh, what's with the whole, like, I guess a blood transfusion can cure you from being a vampire?
Well, that's
Oh,
spoiler alert.
Sorry.
So since the button's been pressed and the spoiler alert has been dropped, well, that's something that's
After
unique.
The spoiler.
Well, that's something that's unique to this movie that you don't hear about in other vampire movies. Is like, if you get a like a full-on blood transfusion from a horse doctor, then you can, be cured of your vampirism. And I mean, for Caleb, he was still pretty freshly a vampire, so I could understand perhaps that taking better effect. May
still fairly recent,
fairly,
vampire.
a few years back. But that is certainly, I mean, it adds a new element to vampire lore, because this movie, they can get away with it. They never say the word vampire.
Right.
It's understood, but they've shown you that they're making their own rules. They, I think that by putting like a cross on the handle of Jesse's gun, it's their way of saying like, we're not doing that.
Right.
We're not doing all the things.
Well, and I also think by not saying vampire,
yeah,
they can get away with it. There was one moment where it felt, I was like, oh man, I bet you, like, when they were writing this scene and they were like, how do we do this? It's when he's in the car and like driving and he shows his dad that like his hand is burned. Caleb shows that his hand, like the sunlight burns his hand, and it's like, what's wrong with you? What's going on? And he's like, Dad, I don't know how to explain. And I'm like, you could just say you're a vampire. But
well,
no, I'm glad they didn't.
But it also begs the question of like, does the word vampire exist in this world that this movie's taking place?
Good point. Good point.
Did Bram Stoker write Dracula? Did all of these things happen that would have like led to vampire being part of like the common vernacular? So yeah, who knows?
Wow. It's a big question. Is this just in an alternate timeline?
And on that note, Dan, what would you do these days if you were bringing back Near Dark?
Well, as I was watching it and enjoying all of the elements of it being a Western,
Yeah.
why not remake it as originally intended? Remake it as a Western. I know the vampire element, I think, was something that was added along the way. Keep the vampire element, but remake it. I would still, I mean, you could still call it Near Dark. It's not like this movie has, we're not ruining childhoods here.
Yeah.
And I would even say, like, would Katheryn Bigelow want to direct it?
I'd want her to. Now, are you talking about like more of a traditional kind of Western, like, Dusty Wild West type of thing? Or like a Hell or High Water modern day kind of?
No, I was
Western.
thinking more Old West,
Yeah.
like just a gang of
Oklahoma territory.
Yeah, exactly. Oklahoma territory. And have with the horses and the wagons.
You could call it High Midnight.
High Midnight.
There
we go.
I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to let me look at my notes to see if I feel like I might have. Oh, so yeah, no, just another. That was really my only idea. I mean, also, like, there is tumbleweed in the movie.
Yeah.
Like there's and yeah, so many Western callouts. But I was thinking
also him riding up on a horse at the end.
Well, right, yeah, of course. I was thinking this would be a great movie to like go see at a drive-in, like
totally
midnight movie. I would also, and I was tempted to put this movie on after I finished watching Near Dark, but I would pair this in a double feature with Blood Simple.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Speaking of the aforementioned Coen brothers, but
yeah,
just I mean, for so many reasons. First feature.
It's got a similar pace to it.
Similar vibe to it. So, but also it's not similar enough to be like, oh, why would I sit through this after I just watched that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I would do. What would you do?
Dan, this was a really tricky one. Seeing as how this was one that, I hadn't even seen it until watching it for this podcast. And obviously to be made more available would be great. It's clearly a cult favorite for so many people and is up there in the discussion of like the great vampire movies, especially considering the fact that it came out like right at the same time as The Lost Boys and Monster Squad, for what it's worth. It's really difficult to kind of think about a way to approach this that would make it better. Some things that I would find interesting, but I don't know if I would want necessarily to see it as a movie or even like a series, but Jesse getting turned into a vampire in the Civil War, like, what was that like? And clearly there are a lot of other implications when you're doing any type of material about, in the Civil War era, especially considering the fact that he was on the Confederate side of things.
Yes.
Severin becoming a vampire, it's almost like for him, it seemed like that could have been something that he even like was seeking out for himself rather than like something that just happened to him. And so there are, I think, some prequel potentials here. But ultimately, I really just think that, honoring this movie in other ways as is would be more appropriate. Like you said, drive-in. I do think that maybe as a graphic novel, if it hasn't already been done, would be a really good approach for this, because it has the right kind of tone for that. And you also wouldn't get kind of like the wooden performances from Adrian Pasdar if you're drawing him. Despite the fact that paper comes from wood and it's on a piece of paper. But yeah, that's kind of where I would go. It wouldn't be anything really crazy, but really finding new ways to honor this movie, I think would be awesome. Also, it's just like a lot of those early Katheryn Bigelow movies. You know, this one, Strange Days, Blue Steel. You know, they're not as easy to find, and it would be great to kind of have a.
I was gonna say Blue Steel.
I did watch Blue Steel.
I was gonna say that movie has, I think, like an Arrow Blu-ray or a Kino Lorber Blu-ray.
Oh yeah, sure. But what I mean is like some sort of celebratory, programming block somewhere that celebrates like the early Katheryn Bigelow movies. And
well, the Criterion
everybody
channel
knows and loves.
The Criterion channel.
I mean like an in-person programming block. Like a Katheryn Bigelow fest kind of a thing would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great like a museum thing.
Ooh, it could be called a Bigelowdian.
Bigelowdian. Big Bigelowdian.
Why do I have a feeling that she would hate that? Like, I don't know her, but I just get the impression that she would hate that.
Yeah, no, I feel like she'd just be...
What? Like, oh, no. God, I hate
I will not accept this invitation. Please don't screen my films.
Yeah. But overall, everybody just needs to watch Near Dark if you haven't seen it already. If it's been a while, you got to check it out. It's so much fun. The commentary that Katheryn Bigelow does on the DVD is good. It's not information that you can't find anywhere else, but it's good. Well, if you all have amazing ideas for how you would want to bring back Near Dark, please email us, ruinchildhoodspod@gmail.com. I'd also like to give a plug. I gave one in the last episode, but my other podcast that I do with my friend Louise, I have a great idea, but I'll never do it. We're pumping more of those out, which is a lot of fun. Dan, why don't you tell everybody what we're doing on our next episode of the podcast?
Oh, well, our next episode on our little road trip takes us to Oregon. And
hey, that's where I am.
And we will be getting not quite to where Jon is, but we will be visiting the town of Astoria, Oregon.
Yeah.
The setting of 1985's The Goonies, directed by Richard Donner, starring Sean Astin, Martha Plimpton, Josh Brolin, Kei Hai Kwan, Corey Feldman.
You could keep on going.
Joe Pantoliano, Robert Davi, Anne Ramsey. Yes.
Mary Trainor.
Yes, thank you. That's, I was trying to remember. Yes, and the kid who plays Chunk, and I'm sorry, I forgot. Jeff
something.
Apologies, but... Yes.
Jeff Cohen.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. And John Matuzak. Anyway,
John Matuzak.
We're going to talk about them all because we're going to talk about Goonies.
It's amazing that it's taken us like 240 episodes to get to the Goonies, but I feel like since we're going through each United State, Oregon, we'll talk about this more in the next episode, but living in Oregon, there are some movies that the state is particularly proud of, and Goonies is really at the top of that list. And I feel like it's deservedly so. So more on that on the next episode. Well, Dan, as you are getting picked up in the Winnebago from hell, I wish you a good journey.
Good journey.